I wanted to talk about um, is this idea of choices and making choices, just as a kind of a condensed version of it, a little bit. Um, with choices, as I don't know if you saw the video from that I duetted from Gizo or not, but again, he was talking about choices and how choices can lead you to greatness. We need to not be afraid to make a choice because we're afraid we're going to make the wrong choice. Um, but but again, I wanted to just bring that up because I think if we look at choices from a perspective of we are we're good at making choices, or we look at choices from the perspective of we're going to have to make choices, right? There's no way around it. But at the same time, we're also it's also a privilege and a blessing that we're able to make choices, right? Because there's some situations and instances, whether it's nature or whatever, where you don't have a choice. Things are defined for you. It's like we know we're going to die at some point, right? We don't have a choice in that. So we have to make the most of the choices that we have and that we're able to make. So if we can approach choices one gratefully in that sense that we're given the ability to at least make these choices, that's a positive thing. That's a good way to start this mindset shift, okay? Now, the other part of that is we want to look at choices not as good or bad, or at least try to see them not necessarily as good or bad, right or wrong, but as learning opportunities. Okay? And the reason I say that is yes, there are some choices that are going to be better than other choices, right? When you're weighing two potential outcomes, some are obviously better outcomes than others. But either outcome is going to be a learning experience. Some of those lessons just may be harder lessons that we have to learn. And if we look at it as a learning experience instead of a right or wrong experience, good or bad, then that also helps us when the choices we have to make aren't necessarily pleasant choices. Right? Because a lot of times we look at decisions that we have to make or choices we have to make as good or bad. But sometimes even the good choices are things that we either don't want to have to do, or are still going to be painful to begin with, or, you know, just not a great situation, but we still have to do it. Kind of like surgery. Nobody wants to have surgery, but yet sometimes that's the better choice to make. Right? Even though we know there's probably going to be pain, going to be inconveniences, going to be a recovery time afterwards. But we do it because longer term, it's going to be a better result and a better outcome once we get through that uncomfortableness up front. Right? But uncomfortableness isn't fun to go through. So if you think about the choice of surgery or no surgery sounds like obviously the better choice, right? Because you don't want to have to go through that uncomfortableness. But you may, but not having the surgery eventually could lead to even more uncomfortableness or more problems. Right? So choices aren't always good or bad. Because even, like we said, even those good choices can be kind of negative if you think about it, or, you know, are going to be unpleasant to make. It's how we choose to approach those choices. Which choice is going to get us further on our path towards greatness and towards being the best version of ourselves, or get us into the better situation. And sometimes, yes, that does mean sitting down and kind of writing out the pros and cons of each choice so that we can logically think through things and weigh them to see them objectively instead of just in that moment, you know, where we're in the emotion of the choice, and in that moment of the choice, we may not always see things as clearly, right? So sometimes we have to do a little work up front to make the choice. But when we can take our emotions out and take the good and bad side out and look at, okay, it's a lesson either way I go. I'm still going to be moving forward. Which one of these, having looked at it, which one of them is going to get me, or do I think is going to get me further down the road? You know, we don't know. We don't always know what else might happen down the road or what might sideline us at some point in the future. But given all that we know now, and doing, you know, our due diligence, obviously, what's going to get us to our goal, or has the better chance of getting us to our goal first, or in the best possible manner. Okay. And that's where we want to, you know, and that's kind of where we want to focus on things with choices. How do we, is just that mindset shift of, yes, I'm feeling the emotion. I'm feeling the good and bad from either of these choices. I'm being realistic there, but I'm choosing to then remove some of that out of the decision making process, so I'm not fearing making that decision. Because I know either way I'm going to get a lesson out of it. I'm going to learn something that's going to help me on that path to being the best version of me. All right?